You're listening to Unfiltered, real talk about sex and love with Ashley
and Heather. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about how addiction recovery impacts relationships. And I have to say that one of my favorite days of the week is Tuesday, because that's when our episodes release. And usually, even by the time that I get into the office in the morning, we have 2 or 3 emails from listeners. And so I just want to give you guys a shout out that we so appreciate you listening and sending in your questions. And we find that a lot of times questions come out of these episodes. And so we just are really thankful for you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. We feel honored that, we're safe enough to ask these questions. And we hope that by answering them, it helps other people realize that they're not alone, and that there are people out there experiencing the same thing, and that there's hope for change. There's hope for reconciliation, for healing, for recovery, all the things. There is hope. Okay, the first question is, as my husband and I walk through recovery, he's in 7 pillars, I'm in betrayal and beyond. I'm nearing the end of my group and preparing for full disclosure. I wish there were clear resources to help our Christian parents, including my retired pastor father-in-law, understand sex addiction and how to support us. Could you create an episode specifically for parents of adult children in recovery? Yes, we can add it to the list. We plan our episodes out on the main Pure Desire podcast, where this would probably fit as an episode. And so we will add it to the list and see where it fits in future episodes. The other thing I was going to suggest is we are very close to having a new book out called Hope, Healing, and Freedom. And that book is a good foundation of sexual addiction, betrayal trauma, what happens. And we actually wrote it with not only the people struggling in mind, but also the helpers. And so whether that's church staff, or it could be a parent, somebody who says, I have a loved one struggling or hurting, and I want to understand what this is all about. And so I would keep your eye out for that. I think that book is going to be perfect to give to your father, to say, hey, this is what we're going through, and give him understanding. We do a little bit of unpacking things to help people realize it's not just a spiritual battle. There's a brain issue. We definitely emphasize the trauma that happens to a spouse when something like this occurs, so that they don't see it as, well, why don't you just forgive and move on? Or you're kind of overreacting, all the things that I heard as a betrayed spouse. We really want people to understand this is a big deal for not only the struggler, but the spouse as well. In the meantime, until that book is available, we do have Sexual Integrity 101. We understand it can be harder to get somebody to watch an 8-part video series versus read a book. That's why we created the book. And then my favorite thing to do would be kind of go through our blogs, type in betrayal, type in trauma, type in D-Day, anything that you're looking for in our search bar on our website, and see what blogs and podcasts come up. Even search through our Unfiltered podcast, because we list each question that we cover in the podcast, and see if there's an episode where you can say, this is exactly how I'm feeling. This is exactly how I'm experiencing what's going on in my marriage. And then you may be able to kind of curate him a list of saying, here's a podcast to explain what my husband is experiencing. Here's a podcast to explain what I'm experiencing. We just figured it'd be better for you to hear something, because it can be really hard to talk about it. And so those are a few of the ideas. But then also just remember that family or not everybody is going to be a safe person for you to share everything to. So in my early years of healing and recovery, I thought, okay, if we're going through this, because I'm a very open book type person, all of our family and friends need to know exactly what we're going through, or else we're not being authentic. And it's okay for you to say, by the way, that was a mistake, because some of those people ended up hurting us worse. It's okay for you to say, I have my safe group, my safe people, my leader, my counselor, whoever, that really understand this world and support us. And I love my parents, and I want them to have a basic understanding, but they're probably not going to be the ones to share the full story with.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever level you know is appropriate for those people, whether it's not sharing anything, maybe sharing, hey, we're going through some things, there's some, sexual behaviors we're navigating, and, just giving a basic kind of generic answer, or not even saying what it is and just saying, we're struggling with some things as a married couple, and so and so, has done some things that have been hurtful, so we're seeking help, we have support, don't worry about us. But if there's ever a time where we don't engage in holidays, or maybe we seem a little bit off, or so and so doesn't come with me to one of these events, that's why. And we would just
Mm-hmm.
appreciate just some distance, some cushion while we navigate this. But we just want to make sure that you guys know there is something off. We are getting help for it, and we're okay. So figure out what version your family probably needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially with the book Hope, Healing, and Freedom and with SI 101, there's quite a bit of content in that talks about the brain. And so just reiterating that this isn't just a moral issue or a moral failing, but that this is actually a physiological issue and it's linked with trauma. And so there is a depth of explanation in those two resources. And I guess the other thing that I would just mention is that from my experience, when my first marriage was blowing up and I had to go to counseling, and which I was raised in a very conservative Baptist home, and we don't go to counselors, and so it really changed the dynamic in my family. But it also, the more that I started learning about not just my things, but also where they were coming from and how they were part of my family of origin. And I started talking about those things. My parents responded so well, and they were so open to everything that I was learning through counseling and about psychology and about how our body and brain work and how trauma impacts us and all of those things, and which I never would have expected. I almost expected more of a, well, you do your counseling to help you, but we don't want to be a part of that. But it changed our family, and it changed the way we talked about how we felt, and it kind of opened this door for us to be far more real and authentic with each other. And so I would just encourage whoever sent in this question to, if you feel the Holy Spirit prompting you to do something or say something to your parents that might go against the grain, to just take that step of faith, because you just don't know how God is going to use your experience to change your entire family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember when I was leading my first group, and my mom, started coming to church with me, and my group was going to be advertised. And I was thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to have to tell her why I'm doing this Betrayal and Beyond group. And I really don't want to, because we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. And our family was so uncomfortable, and feelings weren't real. There was always some medical thing off with us if we had feelings. And because my mom was a nurse. And I was like, oh, I have to tell her. So then I was like, okay, I'm leading this group because John's struggling with some sexual behaviors. And so I'm leading a group for wives. And it was so uncomfortable. And then she was just like, I probably need to go through a group like that, because she does have a past. And so as I was going through a group, and like you were saying, Heather, listening to those little promptings of either saying something, even though it's uncomfortable and it's not what her family does, it definitely did unlock some really fruitful conversations. And then at some point, my mom actually got into her own group, which was really, really good. That
Mm-hmm.
was that version. Like I said before, we also had the family members where it's like, I don't think they'll ever be safe enough to unpack all of that. And so we just have a different level of
Mm-hmm.
being authentic and saying that, yeah, we're going through something, but we've got our people that are helping us with it, and we appreciate you just praying. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the extent of that. So, and then we have those family members who are like, we're not talking about anything. So listen to the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit, use good wisdom, all the things. And then hopefully that book will be a help too. Okay, the next question is, I'm navigating a delicate situation with my 16-year-old daughter and a male youth leader. He has been texting her personal prayers and crossed boundaries, despite our request for him to stop. My concern is whether this relationship is appropriate, as it feels like he's overstepping. We're meeting with him and church leadership soon, and I'm wondering what questions to ask and how to handle this in a God-honoring way. I'm also healing from my own betrayal and struggling with how to approach the situation without letting past wounds cloud my judgment. Would love any advice. And so the thing that like jumped off the page is that they've already asked this youth pastor to not do that and that he's still doing it. Like it does not matter if your request as a parent is out of line or if he's really doing something or not doing something. The fact is, you've asked somebody in a position of power, spiritually older, a mentor to your daughter, and they're doing it anyways as a paid staff member or even volunteer, but as somebody on staff at that church is not okay. Like that would be a red flag to me if anybody continued to text my daughter after I've asked them not to. So I don't think that's inappropriate for you to pursue talking, bringing in the other church leaders, going, taking the step that you're taking. There could be some betrayal trauma stuff triggered. I don't know, but I still think it's appropriate for you to move forward if you've asked and they haven't stopped. If you're concerned about your own betrayal trauma, judging, what you're asking, I would say run it through your husband if he's, involved, and maybe, a group leader or mentor, somebody else who's outside of the situation personally that you can say, here's what I'm thinking of asking. How does this sound? You know me, you've been through group with me, you've, counseled me, my triggers. Is there anything in here that you feel like is just me living out of my own trauma and out of line? So have your people. You always need your people when you've been through things. I mean, just in general in life you do, but especially if you've been through trauma or betrayal, always have your people because situations are going to come and go, and you need to be able to kind of vet that out with somebody, maybe distill your thoughts down what it is you're really asking and separate out, this is what I'm feeling because of my experience, and this is what I'm feeling because this is truly out of line and I need to move forward with this. I would also talk with your daughter and make sure first that she understands the steps you're going to take so she doesn't feel blindsided by this, because I've had a situation like this where my daughter was experiencing a lot of racism at her school. And so, of course, I want to continue to pursue talking with the principal. But there were times where she's like, no, you're going to embarrass me. And it's not that big of a deal. And so navigating, like doing the right thing as a parent, but also trying to help your daughter feel like you're on her side is really important too. So make sure she knows the steps you're taking. And some of the ways I would talk with my daughter, I would say, Ayla, I know you don't want to be ostracized. I know you don't want to look like a snitch, but at the same time, my job as your parent is to protect you from things that are harmful. And as healthy people and Christians who want a good environment for kids, we need to let the people in charge know what's going on so that this doesn't continue, because maybe you're not impacted by it, but somebody else could be. And we need to at least say something. And so, I'll say, you can blame me. You can say it was all your mom or whatever it is, but just making sure that she knows the steps you're going to take and can kind of have that chance to calm down a little bit if she's angry, or, maybe you can talk things out and figure out, would it be better if, she went with you, or, just create a plan. And then lastly, I would recommend our newest resource book I wrote, Girl Talk, just to create a culture where you can continue to have conversations with your daughter. Because if you're concerned about this pastor overstepping boundaries, you want to make sure that in your mom role of, being mama bear and protecting her from harm, she also knows she can talk to you about anything, and that you're going to be a place where you say, let's figure this out together, and that she begins to trust you to take action on her behalf because you've created this culture where everything is okay to talk about, is something I would recommend.
Yeah. And Girl Talk is really just like an 8-week study that kind of helps you to start the conversations that will be ongoing conversations and that will build relationship. And so it's fabulous. I would also say too that that in this situation, the church leadership needs to know that this is happening, because if they could possibly have a plan in place or a process in place that deals with this kind of thing. And if they don't, they probably need to have one in place. And especially when you have adult leaders that are leading minors, they need to have a plan. So absolutely. Yeah. Okay, our last question says, my husband and I are celebrating 25 years in August, but my recovery has been a roller coaster since discovering his porn addiction 15 months ago. We've planned an anniversary trip, but I'm struggling to book it. Part of me thinks it could be healing, but I'm afraid it might end up being a painful reminder. How long into recovery is it safe to take an extended vacation? So when it comes to this kind of thing, there isn't a playbook by any means. It really boils down to what you're comfortable with. And if you're feeling uncomfortable taking an extended trip, then don't do it. Then have a conversation with your husband about it and how you're feeling. And I mean, it's great. Celebrating 25 years is an amazing milestone. But if there's some hesitation there, and if the recovery process maybe hasn't been long enough for you to feel safe, then you might just, I don't know, opt out and say, let's do this for our 25 years. And then in this many months or next year sometime, that let's plan this vacation. But I would definitely stick to your feelings, and I guess I would just hate for her to feel obligated to do this, and then she goes on this trip and feels even worse, or it ends up being something that's hurtful and not helpful.
I do have very, very, very personal firsthand experience with things like this, anniversary dates, and going into an anniversary after a fresh wound or discovery. And I would say, either just don't do it and say that's not what I want to do this year. I'm still, if this is true, I'm still here. I'm in this marriage. I'm working toward healing and whatever it is we need to work toward. But I just am not up to doing our normal anniversary trip. It's too painful. I know it's special, but instead I'm going to stay home and just lounge in the sun and read books or whatever. That's more Heather style, or, just be home. Or I'm going to go plan a trip with my sister or girlfriends, and I'm going to get away so that it's not too painful for me to be reminded that it's our anniversary weekend. I just can't do it this year. Totally okay. Other option is to also still be honest and say, I need to put it out there that I'm completely not where I want to be for this anniversary. I'm sad. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated that this is where we are. It doesn't feel like a celebration. I don't feel proud of our 25 years right now. I'm hurting, but I think it'd be great if we can take this trip to just sit in the yuck, talk more, be real. I don't want cake, just whatever it is that you may end up just saying, this is where we're at, and it's a hard place. And I'm glad we're being honest about it and we're working on it, but I'm not going to have the same excitement for celebrating as I normally do. And I think either version is okay. Or doing something, of course, just doing something completely different. Maybe you don't do a big elaborate trip. Maybe you, just stay local and you get dinner and you go to a bookstore and you look for resources to help with what you're going through. So, it's okay to do something different and not add to that pain of where you're at right now. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining our conversation today. And we believe if you can think about it, we should be talking about it. So continue to send your questions to us at unfiltered@puredesire.org. And if you found this episode helpful, make sure to share it with a friend so more men and women can find us.